So you started Privy back in 2011, and the idea was that you're going to sell to old school brick and mortar businesses. So what was the product exactly back then?
Yeah, so the original concept behind Privy was a self-serve dashboard where these brick and mortar businesses like restaurants or dry cleaners, they could log in, they could create coupons, they could put those online, and they would be able to use those as a way to like track the effectiveness of your Facebook ad or your Google ad. How many leads and how many customers did that actually drive in your store when they come in with their phone to use the offer? So the idea was like closing the loop between online and offline for brick and mortar. Big idea, but there were a lot of challenges with it.
So initially it seemed to work because like 2 years later you raised a seed round, but then a slowdown came. What was happening?
Yeah, so we found success the old-fashioned way, just like walking down the street, talking to business owners, cold emailing, cold calling. Like it was a grind, um, and we ended up winning a handful of like regional businesses that had multiple locations, and that got investors excited. It also had us excited. We were like, wow, we can actually do this. Um, and so we raised some money and we built a small sales team and built out the product team a little bit. And we were trying to kind of replicate that. And what we found was just like it was too big of a slog, candidly, because you're trying to sell to either an owner or a marketer a product that impacts in-store operations, and the sales process was like an enterprise sale for a small business size contract. And it didn't end up scaling up for us.
So you hired all these people with the venture money, but sales were not catching up.
Exactly. Yeah. We were up to, I think it was like 10 people at our peak. So it wasn't huge numbers. And, we gave it a good shot after the seed round for about a year and a half, and felt like it wasn't really scaling the way we all intended.
And then you thought you might sell the business, get acquired.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we were working on an interesting problem. It was a smart group of people, and we had a couple kind of small business oriented marketing tech brands on the table. We decided to pursue one of those. I can't really say who it was with, but there was a whole bunch of things that happened on their end, including going public and stuff like that. That actually they ended up pulling the deal from us basically the day that we were originally thinking we were going to close.
And were you thinking of selling because you had given up and it's like, I don't know what to do with this?
Yeah,
That's why?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like at the time, it felt like it was just going to be a huge lift to figure out what to do next. I mean, we were also running out of money, right? So I wasn't going to be able to like ask investors
Right.
for more and all that. Now, what I will say is like throughout that process, there was still a part of me deep down that thought with a couple small tweaks, we, not small, but a couple important tweaks, we might be able to find an opportunity here. It actually took like a forcing function, like the deal falling apart, for me to pursue that, which was, a lesson as a first time founder right there.
And then the deal fell through and you had to let go some people and you ran out of money. But for some reason, you still decided to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. Like, why do we keep going? I still think back to that moment. Honestly, it's as simple as like, I don't think I could have gone out and got a job after. Um, and this really interesting thing happened where like we kind of, we had the conversation with our investors. We told them, exactly what was happening when we were going to run out of money. And then like all the pressure came off, and I kind of pitched a few of the people that we didn't let go. Hey, like, we've got a little bit of customer revenue, right? We don't need to shut down the product. I have a idea for how we can shift the business and pursue a couple key things differently to give this a real shot. Like, would you be willing to stick around? And, one of them at the time said no, and that was totally fine. But two of the developers said yes. And we basically said, okay, let's change everything we want to change, and I'll walk through that in a sec. But we took about 30 days, and we built a new version of the platform that we thought might have legs.
And so tell me, how did you come to those decisions? Like, so you decided to rebuild it. How did you know what to build? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so we talked to a couple of our customers that were like happily using the product and paying for it regularly, and I'll never forget those conversations. One of them said like, "Hey, it's great that you can close the loop between online and in store. Like that's awesome, but no one really gives a shit about that inside my company." The thing that I love most about Privy is that I have never grown my email list this quickly. And she walked me through how long it took her to get the size email list she had today before Privy, and how fast it's growing with Privy. And that was a byproduct of the first version of Privy that I knew existed. But there was all this talk at the time, this is 2011, about how email was dying, and can't build a business around email. And so like I let a lot of that uh, get to my head when I really should have trusted my gut earlier on that. But that was a key insight. And then we spoke to a couple of the other customers that were still using, and they pretty much said the same thing. And so we said, all right, or I pitched them. I said, hey, why don't you consider pay up front for the year at a discount? We'll keep the product as is. You keep using it, and we'll basically use that money to go build V2 of Privy.
And so what was the idea for V2?
So it was basically moving away from trying to change the world and like closing the loop to just honing in on the customer pain point that we heard time and time again that we did better than anyone else, which was growing your email list. And, we also, so that was one thing, just like a major positioning change and a major focus on list growth. The other thing was a business model shift. So in our first iteration, you had to talk to sales, you had to sign a contract. There was no like free version or self-serve version to let you see value quickly. So that was the next big shift in this second iteration, was list growth and the ability for anyone who wants to grow their email list to come in to start doing it for free without talking to a human. Right? We really wanted to show value to our users before we asked for any value in return. And we also wanted to prove to ourselves that we could find people that were interested in growing their list, right? If we were going to continue working on this thing for another couple of years. So those were two really big shifts. The third was that we just like, luckily we had one customer that had a brick and mortar location, but also happened to be selling online through e-commerce. And the conversation with her was, yeah, similar to the others. I've never grown my email list this quickly, but also the way I make the majority of my money selling online is by sending email. And so that was my first experience talking to an e-commerce merchant, right? Like I'd spent years talking to small business owners with brick and mortar, restaurant, et cetera. And so those were the three things, right? The messaging and the focus on list growth, being very clear. We want to be the best at that. Self-serve with a freemium model, and then e-commerce.
So to simplify, the tool was kind of a email capture pop-up tool, and even back then there were 100 tools or WordPress plugins, you name it, already existed. So how did you back then think about differentiation, or why would anybody choose your tool over other options?
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, I mean, when we were getting started, Sumo, Opt-in Monster, like there were big names out there, right? But when we actually looked at the workflows of an e-commerce business, right, and talked to some of our customers that we had, everything was different, right? So like what you do for B2B lead capture and what you do for B2C lead capture, it sounds like subtle differences, but they're pretty big differences, right? Like B2C lead capture for e-commerce typically includes a coupon code, right? Merchants like when that coupon code is unique for each of the people that sign up. And they want that coupon code to automatically work with the back end of their store without having to like go from this system to that system. So like it sounds funny, but that single workflow was what made us realize like Sumo and Optin Monster, which are like fantastic companies, are focused on a very different customer. And then, the other kind of area that we examined from a competitive landscape was MailChimp. And we started to hear about Klaviyo and some of these other like email marketing providers that were e-commerce focused. And what we did was we looked at the growth tools, the list growth tools that they were providing. Constant Contact, there was nothing. Like you were lucky if you could build an embedded form on those platforms at the time. So we said, wow, like the intersection of e-commerce, right, with list growth can be really powerful.
So you had this new strategy, freemium, cheap, self-serve, small business, e-commerce focus. Once the V2 was out and you started executing towards that new mm, direction, how soon did you get success? How soon did you know that yes, it's working?
Right away. I'll never forget. Like I was sitting down and, we went live with our free version. We didn't even have a paid version yet. But the first month there was like 100 stores that came in and started to use it and really see value. The next month it was 200 stores. After that, 400, 800. It just kept doubling. And we just kind of like, I got chills that first night where there was like, 10 people using it because it had taken me, months to go cold call and get 10, contracts the other way. Right. So that was huge.
Where did these companies come from? Was it still cold email or?
I would go into like Facebook groups of e-commerce business owners and Reddit and Quora, and um, I'd look for people talking about like growing your email list for e-commerce within relevant groups. Even within like Squarespace, e-commerce had some forums about, and I would each week I would basically search the forums and the groups looking for people talking about growing their email list. And the fact that we were doing it for free, I could ask for feedback. Like it wasn't like I was trying to sell them anything at the time. I was really just trying to prove value. And so I think word spread pretty quickly at that point. This was even before we entered the integrations space.
So what then? Well, what was the next move? You thought staying in within the boundaries was not big enough. You saw more potential.
Yeah. So as these merchants, as we call them, were successful growing their list, they started to ask us, hey, can you just like integrate with MailChimp or Constant Contact or Klaviyo so that we can move the data over? Which is natural, right? Of course. Yeah, let's do it. And so we built those. And what we found was, wow, like we can actually get attention from some of these bigger ecosystem players because the business models line up perfectly, right? MailChimp prices on the number of contacts and Privy grows the number of contacts, right? And ultimately the shared client between us will be more successful the more contacts they have. So what we found is after we built these integrations, which you can do without a relationship, of course, we started to get some of the attention from some of these bigger ESPs that recognized that Privy's growth tools were far superior to everything they offered, right? So there was just so much like really tight alignment between the shared value of Privy, working with a client. And we actually ended up getting distribution from a lot of those partners early on. Constant Contact would send emails about us. MailChimp would include us in some of their docs. And that was when we said to ourselves, oh, wow, like we should go out and build integrations with every single ESP for e-commerce. And the list was big. So there was like 30 integrations that we built. Some of those would drive us like 0 new installs a month. Some would drive us hundreds, right? And it just kind of, for every integration, it was like an experiment. Let's just do it and see what happens. And it just started to steamroll from there.
Was the competition sleeping? Did you get a lucky break, or were they paying attention and being fast followers?
No, the world at the time was sleeping on Shopify. I mean, I don't know what you feel about this, but Shopify as an e-commerce ecosystem, I think so many big companies out there, namely B2B, I think their DNA, like they just didn't understand what e-commerce was and how it was different from B2B. And so like we for a long time, I mean, there were like some small apps that were a part of that ecosystem that we competed with, but I don't think they understood the value of like the freemium model and the support model we had. So I think for a while we were like one of the only ones that was focused on list growth for e-commerce.
At one point, did you feel that you can become more than just a list growth tool? What were the signals? How did you come to that decision?
Yeah. So the list growth product paired with great support, even for free users, and a lot of integrations got us from 0 to 4 million in revenue. At the time, we had a really small team. I was doing a lot of the support. And what like the DNA of our company is small business oriented, right? That's my parents and my wife's, it's just what I know. And so like especially coming from the world where I had to cold call my way in, now having all these even free users that were engaging in live chat to me was like a blessing. It was a gift. So I was talking to every single one of them. And what they said repeatedly was like, Privy's easy to use, right? We're growing our list and you have great support. So like, why do we need MailChimp as an example? Right. And that we had a lot of those questions come in early on when we were just building confidence in ourselves. We kind of looked around the room and we were like, no, we could, why would we ever do that? They're great partners of ours and they're supporting the customers too. But a lot happened in the ecosystem that shifted the strategy. There was a pretty public breakup between MailChimp and Shopify a few years ago. Yep. And when that happened, because Privy was an integral part of the Shopify and MailChimp customer base, all of MailChimp's customers, not all of them, but like a lot of them were coming to us with questions. And so we were like, what's happening here? Like, why do we have to be the ones to support this? And that was a moment where we said, you know what? Like the opportunity's ours. We just need to take it and let's deliver on, a really easy to use, small e-commerce focused email marketing platform. And, that was amazing. And actually like, I was just looking at the numbers this month. Privy merchants sent 60 million emails through the Privy email platform, and there's really no turning back.
Mm-hmm. So I would think that building an actual like marketing automation email marketing tool would be, in terms of complexity and size, a much bigger thing than what you were, like the list builder. Was there also any doubt, like, can we do this? Are we technically ready? Do we have enough, I don't know, technical expertise, developers? Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should do this other thing.
Yeah. I mean, we still kind of question, like, should we be doing email, right? Like, is that where the puck is going? But there were enough signals around us to be really excited about the growth of email within e-commerce. And kind of, even though it's a crowded space, we felt like it was pretty greenfield when you look at small e-commerce businesses. Internally, no. I mean, we were all naive enough to think that we could do it, and we did. Honestly, like,
How long did it take you to roll out the first version?
so Peter, my VP engineering, built V1 of our email offering in like a weekend. Um,
Dang.
it was super simplistic though. It was just like a email that triggers after someone signs up. Like, we didn't do newsletters and segmentation. Like, we just really wanted to test the demand, and we just put it inside the dashboard, and you could upgrade to the email plan for like, I think it was $5, and scale on contacts. And we just started to see people upgrading very, very quickly. And so that, then we started more automation types, and then we got to newsletters, and then we got like pretty heavy e-commerce segmentation and all this stuff. But um, yeah, it happened pretty fast, but email is complex, right? So like, it has taken us a couple years since we first launched it to get to a spot where now we're sending 60 million, but like, it didn't start that way, right? And the scale wasn't that way from the beginning.
So many companies are afraid to say no to a customer segment. It's like email marketing for everyone, is not uncommon.
Right.
You guys are email marketing platform for Shopify and Wix stores to go from 0 to 1 million in sales. That's highly specific.
Yeah.
Aren't you afraid to turn away business? Did that type of specific positioning? What was the pushback on the inside? Was there somebody fighting against that?
Yeah, no, there definitely, it was a conversation at the board level. Like, are we really just going to be that specific? But it took getting that specific the first, like, when we pivoted Privy altogether to find growth, right? And like, we became known as the best for list growth, hands down, in e-commerce. And I think taking a very specific, similar approach for email really helped us, right? Because if we had big merchants coming in with 100,000 plus lists right when we started, like, they would have written us off, right? Our reputation would have just gone to zero. But because we were starting with small and a focus on like quick time to value, amazing support, it all really worked well together. And now we're certainly maturing those products to work with. We don't want you to outgrow us once you hit 1 million in sales, right? So like, we're investing aggressively to get there, and I think we really have. But being very specific, actually, especially in a market that has just not unlimited TAM, but you're talking about millions of potential customers that are small e-commerce stores. Um, I think it really served us well.
When you made the bet to marry the Shopify ecosystem, was that more like, oh, these guys are doing interesting thing, let's try, or were you instantly bullish that this is our big break here?
Um, as soon as we saw the results of email, we knew there was something here. The other thing that I haven't shared yet is that along the way, what was happening was like, our install volume kept climbing, right? And so we were at a point where we were adding probably 4,000 stores a month that were starting with Privy, with basically zero paid marketing, no outbound sales. And so we effectively became the entry point for customer data within the Shopify ecosystem, right? If someone was signing up with an email, like, there was a pretty good likelihood that Privy was the form powering that. And so that was important because it meant that Privy was actually like building the merchant relationship earlier in the life cycle of that merchant than some of the other email providers out there. And so like, we saw people adopting our email solution, we saw our install numbers going up, and we felt like, wow, we very confident that we could execute on that.
So many, so much of SaaS advice out there says charge more.
Yeah.
You guys are cheap. I don't know if you're the cheapest, but you're cheap. Uh, how do you think about competing on price as a competitive advantage, or and the margins and all that?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely originally rolled out email very intentional about being below MailChimp, right? Like they've spent, you know, 20 years building the most robust email marketing solution out there. How can you compete with that, right? So, like, when you know your product is a subset of the functionality, uh, but you think you can kind of go for the long game here, right? Within a very specific industry, we were very confident in undercutting on price. And on the email side, I mean, it's SendGrid, Spark Post. There's so many of these now. Like it's gotten pretty cheap. So uh, we felt like if we can win people over earlier in their business life cycle, make them happy with both of our products and an incredible support and educational experience, then as they continue to grow, their contact size is going to grow, right? So they will naturally level up in price. And over the years, as we've invested more in our email offering and matured that, the entry points and the packages have shifted a little bit to reflect that, obviously. But we still think if we're the brand for small e-commerce businesses with great support, like we have to be uh, very welcoming in our entry points.
So the classic competitive strategy, Clayton Christensen says, attack from below, because then the bigger competitor, they don't mind if they lose those customers. So do you think that that was true in your case, where you started poaching some Mailchimp's less profitable customers, and maybe they didn't mind, they didn't care that much?
Yeah, I mean, I got a call a little while ago from the partner person at Mailchimp, and they felt like, what's going on. They considered us a tier one partner, and now we're kind of messaging against them. So I'm sure they didn't love it. But what I said to him, I was like, hey, your customers are coming to us asking for support on Shopify integration. And like, where are you guys? So like, I think, it definitely ruffled some feathers. And even with some of our other partners, it's created more competitive dynamics. That was something that we were nervous about in the beginning, but I think we made the right call there. For a few reasons, right? Obviously, we've grown and the business has done well, but another theme has kind of accelerated in the industry around like vendor consolidation. I think a lot of like business owners are fed up with having to have like 30 apps on their store to accomplish, the common, marketing automation. So the theme of consolidation was another thing we saw coming, and it was a bit of a like strategic move to say, hey, we want people consolidating to Privy, not away from Privy.
Hmm. A central theme in your case seems to be that you're constantly talking to and listening to your customers, which informs your product roadmap. Did you ever act on any qualitative customer feedback that actually was the wrong bet?
Definitely. Yeah. We merchants need to solve a few problems if they're going to build a successful business. They need to figure out, one, how am I going to get traffic to my store, right? How am I going to convert traffic? And then how do I drive repeat sales, right? So Privy started with conversion. We expanded into driving repeat sales through email and text marketing, which we now provide. But we did spend probably 3 or 4 months trying to build a solution on answering how do you drive more traffic to your store. We were trying to actually automate ad buys on top of Instagram for e-commerce businesses. Um, and that wasn't anything that customers were asking us for. That was a little bit more of a bet that we wanted to get ahead of. And it turned out to just be really, really difficult to execute on.
What other bets did you make that didn't pay off?
Handfuls around some packaging changes. Like we started as list growth, and that had good, better, best pricing models. Um, and then we decided to move that to a traffic based model. You basically free for a certain amount of traffic, and then moving that up based on how much site traffic they get. That was a miss. Um, we did a bunch of surveying and conversations, and people understood. But I think we at that time we were just so close to moving in the direction of uh, the email that we should have kind of had the foresight, and that's on me, um, to recognize, hey, we should just be moving towards a bundled world where conversion and email go together, and you throw conversion in for free. And that's where we've landed now, by the way.
And so Privy was successful and growing, and then you guys got acquired June this year. Why did you want to make that bet? I mean, I understand from a founder perspective, there's some chips off the table, but for the business, why did you think that was a good move?
Yeah. Privy is all about small business, right? Small business comes with some challenges, right? Merchants, it's called merchant death, right? A large number of these stores never get to meaningful scale, and they shut down. And so we were out. Well, first, we're looking around us. We're seeing Klaviyo and Attentive raising mega rounds. And Privy was right there in the middle of it, competing, which is still amazing to me. But we were out raising, and we were getting a lot of questions around, uh, merchant death, and do we need to move upstream and focus on enterprise? And that's not our DNA. I don't think that's our brand. And so, at the same time, we started to get a couple offers in the door, and we spoke about it. And with Attentive, Brian from Attentive pitched me. He said, "Hey, I'm going to give you, your Series B. Privy is going to remain a standalone brand. You're going to focus on small and mid-sized businesses. You're going to do exactly what you're doing today, but we're going to give you a bunch of our Attentive resources." And that was a super exciting offer and opportunity for us to keep going and building this business, because we feel like we've barely scratched the surface on the opportunity in front of us.
So, what is the dream? So, you are here now, and somewhere is the dream. What is the gap between now and the dream?
Yeah, I think we still have a lot of product work ahead of us. We also have a lot of go to market work ahead of us, right? So now we're at a spot we're actually onboarding 10,000 stores a month that start using Privy. It's an incredible funnel. It's all inbound, um, and I think as we've expanded our product offering, we have a brand in the market, and we're trying to educate very quickly that Privy can actually handle your scale on the email side, right? So we've got some stories to work on there, some customer education, but from a product perspective, we've been building out text messaging. That's taking off like crazy inside our user base and inside the funnel too. And so I think the next big thing for us is thinking about orchestration of marketing automation. Like, these small businesses shouldn't necessarily need to understand the differences between email and text marketing. They should turn to Privy, and we should be able to deliver messages to their customers based on where we have the opt-in or where we have the preferences, and they should kind of remove themselves from the complex decisions of what some enterprise marketing automation retention marketing managers are doing every day.
So now, looking back at your journey and your whole experience, that that you've gotten, what is your thesis or philosophy around competitive strategy? So, if you had to pass on some wisdom to other business owners out there, what do you need to win on? Product, story, messaging, brand. Like, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think if you are in a huge market that is growing quickly, that's my experience. That's what I know, right? we did not need to think about competition too much, right? What we needed to focus on was delivering value quickly to the customers that we had. And if you can do that repeatedly, like that was what got us to 4 million. It was pretty scrappy. There was no magic there. You just listen to them, then that they will drive you where the market should take you. But like in those early years, when we started to see that growth, we, yeah, I mean, we looked at the competitive landscape from like where could we fit in and where's the opportunity. We weren't looking at competitive features and feature battles. We were just saying, hey, if we deliver on this experience and we do it better than anyone else, like they'll come to us, and they did.
Awesome.